It started with a single Instagram story, one that K. Michelle swears she didn't mean to post. A dimly lit clip, her voice trembling but furious, calling out certain Atlanta men who love to play family on TV while stealing behind their wives' backs. Within minutes, fans went wild. The comments exploded with one name: Kirk Frost, the husband, the manager, the man Rasheeda has stood beside through every scandal. And now, according to K. Michelle, the man behind a secret business scam that almost destroyed everything Rasheeda worked for. What no one expected was that this time, it wasn't about cheating. It wasn't about Jasmine, or love triangles, or secret children. This was darker money, betrayal, and a plan that could have bankrupted Rasheeda's entire fashion line. K. Michelle claimed she had receipts, screenshots, and voice notes. And when she said she was ready to clear her conscience, fans knew she meant war. The Shade Room caught it first. They posted the clip with the caption, "K. Michelle says she's done protecting frauds." Within hours, Kirk and Rasheeda's names were trending across every platform. Former castmates started hinting, whispering that this wasn't just a rumor, that Kirk had been running something shady behind Rasheeda's back for months. Even Carly Red, never one to miss a moment, jumped in live saying, "Chilly, I told y'all, what's done in the dark always finds the light." But the real explosion came when K. Michelle went live again the next day. Her voice was shaking, her eyes puffy. "I ain't doing this for clout," she said. "I'm doing it because that man used me, used my name, and then tried to play the victim. I was part of that deal. I saw the contracts." Rasheeda almost lost her store because of him. Viewers couldn't believe it. Was K. Michelle really saying Kirk scammed his own wife? Or was she spinning another messy love and hip-hop tale to stir the pot? Within an hour, Kirk responded in a now-deleted post calling K. Michelle delusional, bitter, and desperate for attention. Rasheeda stayed silent, which only made fans hungrier for answers. The tension built with every cryptic quote she posted on her story. Loyalty means nothing if it's only one-sided. Some people smile with you just to study how to hurt you. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed Rasheeda had confronted Kirk privately and demanded to see the financial records of their joint business accounts. She was calm, but you could tell she was breaking, said one source. This time, it wasn't about another woman, it was about betrayal that hit her bank, her brand, and her pride. And that's when the truth began to unravel. K. Michelle wasn't just talking, she had evidence. And she was ready to spill every last detail on camera. What started as a vague accusation soon turned into the biggest reality TV bombshell of the year. Fans braced themselves for what was coming next, because if what K. Michelle said was true, Kirk Frost might have just pulled the biggest scam Atlanta has ever seen. The morning after K. Michelle's explosive live, Atlanta felt like it was holding its breath. Every gossip page, every podcast, every reality fan was dissecting her words like scripture. People wanted proof. Screenshots, voice notes, anything that could turn her accusations into something undeniable. But what they didn't know was that K. Michelle wasn't done talking. She had been quiet for years, holding back out of loyalty, out of fear, out of exhaustion from being called messy every time she tried to tell her truth. But now, she was done protecting anyone. And when she opened her mouth again, the story she told would pull Kirk and Rasheeda's world apart. According to K. Michelle, it all began 2 years ago, when Kirk approached her with what sounded like a clean, smart business idea. He said he wanted to expand Rasheeda's fashion brand, pressing her to collaborate with bigger investors. It was supposed to be a joint venture, K. Michelle said, her voice steady but sharp in one of her private voice notes that later leaked. But what Kirk didn't tell Rasheeda was that he was using fake investors, people who didn't even exist on paper. In her version of events, Kirk had convinced her to sign off on a promotional deal that tied her image to Rasheeda's store. K. Michelle thought it was harmless. A simple shout-out, maybe a few appearances. But behind the scenes, Kirk had allegedly been using her name to funnel fake marketing budgets into shell accounts. When fans heard that, they were stunned. The man who had already been accused of cheating, lying, and manipulating now being accused of financial fraud. It was almost too wild to believe. But insiders close to the Frost family said there had been signs for months: Rasheeda looking distant, Kirk spending more time in business meetings than at home, an unexplained tension that kept slipping through their polished social media smiles. She'd post something sweet, but her eyes told a different story, one friend later recalled. We all knew something was off. By late spring, the whispers had reached Rasheeda. One of her longtime store employees noticed irregular payments being logged under K. Michelle's name. When she brought it to Rasheeda's attention, Rasheeda brushed it off at first. Kirk handled the finances. He always had. But the seed was planted. That same night, Rasheeda stayed up scrolling through her emails, bank statements, contracts, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. She told no one, not even Kirk. Instead, she went to sleep pretending everything was normal. Weeks passed before she confronted him, and when she did, it wasn't a screaming match. It was quiet, cutting, the kind of calm that comes when you already suspect the truth. "I just need you to explain this to me," she said, laying the printed papers on their kitchen counter. Kirk looked at them, sighed, and claimed it was a small accounting mix-up. He promised to fix it, to handle it. And for a while, Rasheeda wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe her husband hadn't used her name, her brand, her life's work for something dirty. But then came the receipts. A few weeks later, Michelle texted her directly. "Sis, I need to talk to you. It's about Kirk." The message hit like a punch. She replied instantly. What happened? What followed was a flood of screenshots, emails, contracts, payment trails, all showing Kirk's name, attached to companies that were quietly transferring funds in and out of accounts under false business identities. One of the shell companies had Michelle's name listed as a marketing partner. Another had Rasheeda's boutique tied to a non-existent distributor. When she saw the documents, Rasheeda's heart sank. "This can't be real," she whispered to herself. Michelle said she had tried to reach Kirk privately before going public. "I called him, he didn't pick up. I texted him. He read it and said, 'Don't get in my business.' That's when I knew he wasn't scared of being exposed, he was scared of losing control." The next few days were chaos. Kirk's phone wouldn't stop ringing, producers, business partners, even old friends trying to find out what was true. He denied everything, insisting Michelle had twisted some business paperwork to stir up attention, but his tone was shaky. People noticed. When he tried to defend himself on live, he stuttered, deflected, and blamed jealous women trying to bring a black man down. Fans weren't buying it. The comments filled with snake emojis, broken heart icons, and long threads dissecting his every word. Behind closed doors, Rasheeda was unraveling. She had built her empire from the ground up, trusting Kirk to manage the money while she focused on creativity. Now, every dollar felt dirty. "I can't even walk in my own store without feeling like a fool," she told a friend. "Everyone's looking at me, wondering if I knew." She started showing up late, canceling photo shoots, ignoring brand emails. Her silence was louder than any statement she could have made. Then, one afternoon, everything exploded again. A leaked audio surfaced online. Michelle's voice, clear and angry, saying, "He was stealing from both of us, using our names to build fake invoices. I have proof he paid himself from the promo funds." The clip went viral within hours. Every gossip page reposted it. Fans flooded Rasheeda's last Instagram post with thousands of comments. "Blink twice if you're okay. Leave that man. You don't deserve this." And through it all, Kirk stayed silent. His calm was almost eerie. Insiders later said he spent those days calling lawyers, trying to clean up the financial mess before Rasheeda could see the full damage. But it was too late. Michelle wasn't backing down, and neither were the fans. On her next live, she said, "If they don't start telling the truth, I'm dropping every document I have." Her followers cheered, flooding her comments with fire emojis. The energy was electric. She wasn't just spilling tea, she was declaring war. By that weekend, Rasheeda was seen alone at an Atlanta event. No wedding ring, no Kirk in sight. Cameras caught her smiling, but it was forced. One reporter shouted, "Rasheeda, is it true about the scam?" She didn't answer, just turned away and whispered to her assistant, "I can't do this today." That clip became a meme overnight. The following morning, Kirk tried to control the narrative. He called in a favor from an entertainment blogger, offering an exclusive interview. In it, he claimed the situation was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by a jealous woman with a vendetta. But as he spoke, fans noticed something in his tone: fear. His voice cracked when he said, "My marriage is solid. We're good." To everyone watching, it sounded like a man trying to convince himself. But behind the scenes, the story was unraveling faster than he could repair it. A former employee from Frost Enterprises came forward anonymously, claiming Kirk had ordered her to move money around to different accounts without asking questions. She said she left the job when she realized the transfers didn't add up. That same night, another anonymous source leaked screenshots showing wire transfers linked to Kirk's personal email. The internet went wild. And in the center of it all stood Rasheeda, silent, watching everything burn. Her closest friends said she was torn, humiliated by the betrayal, terrified for her brand, but still hesitant to destroy the man she'd built her life with. "She's loyal to a fault," said one insider. But this time, loyalty might cost her everything. As the tension built, fans noticed something else. Michelle wasn't gloating. She wasn't celebrating the chaos. She looked tired. "I didn't want it to come to this," she said quietly in one live. "But people need to stop pretending. That man has been playing dirty for too long." Her followers flooded her comments with support, calling her brave for speaking up. Others accused her of exaggerating. But deep down, everyone knew something wasn't right. That's when Rasheeda made her move. She reached out to Michelle privately, asking to meet face. No cameras, no producers, just two women who had both been caught in the same web. They met in a quiet Atlanta cafe, wearing sunglasses and hoodies, trying not to be recognized. Witnesses said they talked for over 2 hours. When they left, Rasheeda looked pale but calm. Michelle later confirmed it, saying, "I showed her everything. She knows now." The next day, Rasheeda posted a cryptic message. "Sometimes silence is the loudest scream." Fans knew instantly it wasn't a denial. It was confirmation. Kirk's scam wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was real, and it was about to blow up bigger than anyone imagined. And that was only the beginning. That night, the Frost house was quiet. Kirk had come home late, long after the kids were asleep, hoping to avoid another confrontation. The tension in the air was heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Rasheeda sat in the living room, her phone glowing in her hand. She didn't look up when he walked in. For a moment, there was only silence. Then she said softly, "You told me there was nothing to hide." Her voice didn't shake. It was calm, steady, and that scared him more than anger ever could. Kirk took a slow breath, trying to sound confident. "Babe, you're listening to people who don't want to see us win. You know how they twist things online." But Rasheeda didn't respond. Instead, she turned the phone toward him. On the screen was a copy of one of the leaked contracts, his signature visible at the bottom. She said quietly, "So this is twisted too." Kirk's face fell. He stammered something about fake documents, Photoshop, anything to make it sound less real. But Rasheeda had already heard the same excuses years before, in different situations. Cheating scandals, lies, broken trust, it all echoed back. Only this time, it wasn't just her heart at risk. It was her business, her name, her future. According to someone close to the couple, that conversation lasted almost 3 hours. Kirk begged her not to make it public. "We can fix it," he said. "If you go against me now, everything we built will crumble." But Rasheeda wasn't sure she wanted to protect him anymore. She told him she needed space and walked out, leaving him alone in the house, surrounded by the evidence of his own undoing. By morning, the blogs had picked up new information. Michelle had released another clip, this time showing an email thread between Kirk and a fake investor named Jamal F. The email detailed plans to move money through dummy accounts to expand Frost Enterprises' marketing outreach. The message was signed off with Kirk's initials, K. Michelle's caption read, "If you're gonna scam, at least don't use your real signature." It was ruthless. Fans couldn't believe how blatant it all looked. Within hours, Kirk's reputation went from TV villain to career criminal in the public eye. People started calling for investigations, tagging Atlanta business watchdogs, demanding answers. Former castmates stayed silent, but insiders whispered that producers were already in meetings, deciding how to handle the situation for the next season. Some wanted to cut Kirk off completely. Others saw opportunity. A scandal this big could mean ratings. Meanwhile, Rasheeda was keeping to herself. She hadn't spoken publicly, but she had been meeting with lawyers and accountants behind the scenes. Her main focus wasn't revenge, it was damage control. She wanted to secure her brand before everything collapsed. According to one source, she had already started removing Kirk's access to their shared business accounts. "She's done being blind," the source said. "She's protecting her empire now." As days passed, more evidence surfaced. A former friend of Kirk's came forward, claiming Kirk had bragged about outsmarting everyone and knowing how to move money so it looks clean. The friend shared voice notes, one of which allegedly featured Kirk laughing and saying, "They'll never trace it back to me." Whether it was real or not, fans were convinced. Twitter turned into a battlefield. Hashtags like #Justice for Rasheeda and #KirkExposed started trending. Memes of Kirk holding fake money flooded through all of this. Michelle remained unshaken. She went live again, sitting in her car, hair tied back, face bare. "I don't take joy in this," she said. "But people need to understand, when you play dirty with folks' money, you're playing with their lives." I'm tired of staying quiet for people who'd never do the same for me. Her tone wasn't loud or dramatic this time. It was weary, like a woman who'd fought too many battles. Her comments filled with both praise and hate, but she didn't care. The real turning point came when Rasheeda showed up at her store for the first time in weeks. Fans had gathered outside, holding signs that read "We love you and stay strong." As she stepped out of her car, paparazzi swarmed, shouting questions. "Are you divorcing Kirk? Is the business scam real?" She said nothing. She just smiled faintly and walked inside. But those who saw her up close said her eyes were swollen, her expression heavy. One employee whispered, "She cried in the back before the cameras came." Inside the store, she gathered her staff. "I know y'all have heard things," she said. "And I'm not gonna pretend everything's fine. I just need you to trust that I'm doing what's right." Her voice cracked, but she didn't let herself break. The staff nodded, some tearing up. They had worked beside her for years, watched her grind, watched her believe in something that now felt tainted. Later that evening, Kirk made one last attempt to fix his image. He posted a long Instagram statement, denying everything and calling out people who thrive off negativity. He ended it with, "Me and my wife good. Y'all mind y'all business." The comments section turned into chaos. Thousands of fans flooded in, demanding proof, tagging K, Michelle, even begging Rasheeda to leave that man before he drags you down. But the real blow came when a local Atlanta news outlet released what they called the Frost Files, a detailed report showing connections between Kirk's company and 3 shell corporations registered under fake names. It wasn't official yet, but the documents looked convincing. And the kicker, one of those companies had K. Michelle listed as a silent partner, without her knowledge. It confirmed everything she had said. Rasheeda saw it at the same time everyone else did. She was sitting in her car outside a meeting when her phone buzzed. She opened the article, read every word, and then called Kirk. He didn't answer. She tried again. Voicemail. She sat there, staring at the steering wheel, until tears started rolling down her face. It wasn't anger anymore, it was grief. Grief for the man she thought she knew, for the brand they built together, for the loyalty she'd given so freely. That night, K. Michelle sent her a message. "I'm sorry it had to come out this way." Rasheeda didn't respond right away, but a few hours later, she typed, "Thank you for telling me. I wish I'd listened sooner." By now, everyone in Atlanta knew the marriage was breaking. Kirk had moved out temporarily, staying at a friend's place downtown. Rumors said Rasheeda had hired forensic accountants to go through every transaction from the past 2 years. "She wants to know exactly how deep this goes," one source said. "And when she finds out, she's not gonna stay quiet." As word spread, even other reality stars started chiming in. Mimi Faust tweeted, "Karma always spins the block." Erica Mena posted a cryptic quote, "When a man ruins his own family, don't help him rebuild it." The internet was eating it up, turning every update into a headline. But behind all the noise, Rasheeda was still silent. Until one Friday night, when she went live for the first time since the scandal broke. The screen was dark at first, just her voice. "I wasn't gonna say nothing," she began, "but y'all deserve the truth. I've seen the paperwork. I've talked to the people. And what I can tell you is this: I'm hurting, but I'm not broken." The live hit 100,000 viewers in minutes. She didn't name Kirk directly, but her message was clear. When someone you trust with your whole life betrays you, there's no going back to how things were. "I'm focusing on me now. My kids, my peace, my future." As she spoke, comments flooded in. "We love you, Queen. Stay strong. Don't look back." She thanked her fans, wiped her tears, and ended the live with one line that would be quoted everywhere the next day. "Sometimes the person you sleep next to is the one digging your grave." Meanwhile, Kirk watched from his phone, alone in a hotel room. He looked drained, defeated, maybe even scared. Because now, it wasn't just gossip. It was exposure. The truth, or at least the version the world believed, was out there. And the man who once thought he could control every story was finally losing the one thing he valued most: his power. And that's when everything started to spiral out of control. The next morning, Atlanta woke up buzzing. Everyone was talking about Rasheeda's live. It wasn't just a statement, it was a declaration of war, quiet, but final. The city's social media feeds were flooded with clips of her voice, shaking as she spoke. Fans called it the most raw and real they had ever seen her. Others said they could feel her pain through the screen. Whatever side people were on, one thing was clear: the Frost Empire was cracking from the inside. K. Michelle, who had stayed quiet since the news report, finally broke her silence with a post that simply said, "Truth always wins." It had no hashtags, no shade, no caption, just those 3 words. But it hit hard. Within minutes, blogs picked it up, spinning new headlines like K. Michelle celebrates victory in Kirk fraud scandal and K. Michelle warns the industry. The truth cuts deep. Everyone wanted to know if she and Rasheeda had made peace, or if this was just another reality feud about to explode again. Behind the scenes, Rasheeda was trying to hold her world together. She was meeting lawyers during the day, consoling her kids at night, and avoiding every camera that tried to catch her reaction. One of her closest friends later said, "She's moving like a soldier right now, quiet, strategic, focused. She's hurt, but she's not gonna let this destroy her." Still, the emotional toll was visible. Sleepless nights, unanswered calls, and a kind of sadness that only comes from betrayal that hits close to home. Kirk, on the other hand, was unraveling. The longer he stayed silent, the more people filled in the blanks for him. His old business partners began distancing themselves. A few even publicly released statements saying they had no involvement with Frost Enterprises. One entertainment blogger claimed Kirk had been blacklisted from several Atlanta events because sponsors didn't want to be associated with him. He tried to defend himself online again, posting a shaky video saying, "Y'all don't know the half. I made mistakes, but I ain't no scammer." The video only made things worse. People called it damage control gone wrong. Then came the bombshell that pushed everything over the edge. A former accountant for Frost Enterprises came forward with actual bank statements. She claimed Kirk had been moving money from Rasheeda's boutique account into a separate personal account under a company name, registered to one of his cousins in Jamaica. "He told me it was for international expansion," she said, but none of the money ever came back. The documents showed hundreds of thousands of dollars in unexplained withdrawals. Once those hit the blogs, it was over. Even Kirk's most loyal defenders went quiet. K. Michelle went live that same night. Her tone was calm, her voice lower than usual. "See, when I said he almost ruined her, y'all thought I was being dramatic. Now you see it for yourself. This ain't about gossips, about truth." The comments flooded with fire emojis, fans cheering her on, thanking her for speaking out. She didn't linger long. "I'm done now," she said before logging off. "Let God handle the rest." But for Rasheeda, it was only the beginning of the fallout. She was forced to pause several upcoming projects, including a new clothing line she had been preparing to launch. Sponsors were nervous, waiting to see how the story developed. The store still opened each morning, but she stopped coming in. Her staff said she couldn't face the whispers, the pity in people's eyes. One of them shared privately, "She's embarrassed. Not because she did anything wrong, but because she trusted the wrong person again." Days later, Kirk showed up at the store, unannounced. Cameras caught him outside, pacing before walking in. No one knew what was said inside, but according to witnesses, voices were raised. "You're not gonna fix this by showing up," Rasheeda reportedly told him. "You broke something you can't buy back." Kirk was seen leaving 20 minutes later, looking defeated, while Rasheeda stayed inside with her manager, visibly upset. Meanwhile, rumors started swirling that producers from their show had reached out to both of them to film a special sit-down. Fans were divided. Some said it would be good for closure. Others thought it was exploitation. K. Michelle, however, had no interest in being part of it. She tweeted, "I already said what I needed to say. I'm not doing no circus for ratings." Still, the story refused to die. Blogs were now connecting Kirk's alleged scam to other shady deals he'd been involved in years prior. Old business partners began telling their stories, and the picture they painted wasn't flattering. One claimed Kirk had borrowed money and never repaid it. Another said he'd used their name on a fake LLC. The more people came forward, the harder it was for Kirk to deny the pattern. And then came the twist no one saw coming. Someone leaked footage from a meeting between Kirk and a mysterious woman at an Atlanta restaurant. The clip showed him sliding a folder across the table. The woman opened it, glanced at the papers, then shook her head. Kirk leaned in and said something that lip readers later claimed was, "Just make it disappear." The internet lost its mind. Fans accused him of trying to bribe someone to bury the scandal. Kirk denied it, saying it was edited footage meant to destroy his name. But by then, the damage was done. Rasheeda was now faced with a choice: stand by him again, or finally walk away. Friends said she spent days alone, thinking about everything: the love, the lies, the years she'd defended him. One close source said, "She kept saying, if I forgive him again, I'll lose myself completely." She wasn't angry anymore, just tired. When she finally spoke to Kirk, it was short. "I don't hate you," she said. "I just can't keep saving you." He tried to interrupt, but she stopped him. "You already said sorry too many times. It don't mean anything anymore." Then she walked out, leaving him sitting there, staring at the door. The next day, she posted a photo of herself standing outside her boutique, smiling faintly, wearing no ring. Her caption read, "Pain teaches, growth demands." Fans flooded the comments with love, calling her strong, an inspiration, the comeback queen. It became one of her most liked posts ever. But behind that smile, things were still fragile. The investigation into Kirk's businesses was still ongoing, and there were whispers that legal action might be taken. K. Michelle reportedly stepped back completely, refusing to do more interviews. "I said my piece," she told a friend. Now it's between them and God. Meanwhile, Kirk had gone quiet. No posts, no appearances, nothing. His last story, posted weeks later, showed a dark hotel room and the caption, "You lose everything when you stop being real." Fans weren't sure if it was guilt or deflection, but either way, it felt like the end of an era. For Rasheeda, though, it was the beginning of something new. Her circle had gotten smaller, her heart heavier, but her resolve stronger. She began rebuilding her brand. Slowly, carefully, this time with every contract double-checked, every detail protected. "Never again," she said in a quiet moment, caught by a friend on camera. "Never again will I let love blind me to business." The city of Atlanta had seen scandals before, but none like this: personal, public, painful, and unforgettable. Fans kept talking, blogs kept posting, but for once, Rasheeda didn't respond. She had nothing left to prove. And yet, as she closed her store one evening, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number. 3 words. "It's not over." She froze, stared at the screen, and for the first time in weeks, fear crept back into her chest. Because deep down, she knew the person behind that message wasn't done, and the story that had already shaken her world might only just be getting started. The next morning felt heavier than any before. A strange silence hanging over Atlanta's skyline as news outlets began picking up whispers of a business betrayal involving Kirk Frost and K. Michelle. Social media had already started to spin its own web of theories, screenshots, and half-truths. Rasheeda sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through her phone in disbelief. The woman she had once defended on live TV, the same woman she had laughed off as dramatic, was now the one spilling every hidden secret she had buried under years of loyalty. "He used my name," K. Michelle said in one viral clip, her voice sharp and trembling. "He used my name and Rasheeda's image to move fake investments through Atlanta boutiques." The video had millions of views within hours. Comments flooded in, fans calling Kirk a manipulator, others accusing K. Michelle of exaggerating for clout, and a few simply heartbroken for Rasheeda. But behind closed doors, the tension had turned real. Kirk paced their living room, eyes bloodshot, mumbling under his breath. "She's trying to destroy me," he muttered, gripping his phone like it owed him the truth. Rasheeda finally looked up from her phone and said quietly, "You already did that yourself, Kirk." That one line hit harder than any headline. He turned to her, stunned, but she didn't flinch. "You used our brand, our stores, our name to pull in people who trusted us. How could you?" she asked, her voice trembling between anger and heartbreak. Kirk tried to explain it away, talking about partnerships gone wrong and misunderstandings in the accounting. But every word sounded thinner, more desperate. Meanwhile, outside their mansion, paparazzi cars began to line up. TMZ had already called twice for a statement, when Kirk refused. They ran their own story with the headline, "Kirk Frost accused of boutique scam." K. Michelle claims Rasheeda was a victim to. The internet exploded. Influencers weighed in. Fans dug up old footage from Love and Hip Hop, piecing together clues they said had been there all along. Even former castmates joined the online debate, posting cryptic messages like "the truth always comes out and karma doesn't miss an address." Rasheeda's mother, Charlene, called in the middle of it all, her voice shaking with rage. "Baby, I told you he'd ruin everything if you kept forgiving him," she said. "You built that empire with your own 2 hands." But Rasheeda didn't answer. She was too busy replaying K. Michelle's interview where she said, "I tried to warn her years ago, but she called me a liar. Now she's seeing what I saw." The words echoed in her head until she felt physically sick. Hours later, Kirk got a call from one of his business partners, a man named Devin, who sounded panicked. "Bro, they're freezing accounts," he whispered. "They think we funneled money through the beauty line." Kirk's heart dropped. Everything was unraveling faster than he could cover it. Later that night, as the Frost family sat in silence, Rasheeda's phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number with a screenshot of internal emails, showing Kirk's signature approving false invoices. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then said, "Kirk, what is this?" He walked over, eyes widening as he recognized his name. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "Someone sent it," she replied. "Who? I don't know, but they said there's more." The silence that followed was unbearable. Kirk sat down, rubbing his temples, while Rasheeda stood frozen, tears burning her eyes. "So it's true," she whispered. "You were scamming under my name." Kirk didn't answer. His phone lit up again, this time with a call from a blocked number. He answered anyway. "This is just the beginning," a voice said before hanging up. Kirk's hands started to shake. By morning, every blog and gossip page had posted new documents, and one even showed a transaction tied to a shell company registered in Jamaica. Fans connected it back to Kirk's frequent trips there over the past year, turning the story into an international scandal. "He's been living a double life in Jamaica," one tweet read, racking up hundreds of thousands of likes. While Rasheeda was building their empire, he was building another one overseas. At that point, Rasheeda stopped reading. She turned off her phone, walked outside, and sat on the steps as reporters shouted her name from behind the gates. The weight of betrayal was too much. Her entire brand, once built on resilience and family, was now being questioned. Michelle, on the other hand, had become a trending topic herself, both praised for her bravery and criticized for her timing. When asked why she decided to speak now, she simply said, "Because I couldn't watch another woman drown in silence." That line hit every gossip blog, every fan page, every talk show. Even Wendy Williams hinted at it during her segment, saying, "If what Michelle's saying is true, this could end the Frost Empire for good." By evening, Kirk tried to do damage control with a shaky Instagram live, insisting he was innocent. "Y'all gotta stop believing lies," he said, pacing in front of the camera. "People will do anything for attention." But the comments section was ruthless. Fans called him a fraud, others demanded proof, and a few begged Rasheeda to wake up and leave. She didn't appear in the live, though her silence said more than any statement could. That night, she slept in the guest room. When Kirk knocked, she didn't open the door. Inside, she stared at a framed photo of them smiling from years ago, and whispered to herself, "How did we end up here?" Meanwhile, somewhere across town, Michelle was sitting with her manager, scrolling through the chaos she had unleashed. "It's out now," she said quietly. "No turning back." Her manager sighed. "You know they're gonna come for you next, right?" She nodded. "Let them. Truth don't need protection." But even she knew the storm was only beginning, and the fallout would change every name attached to it. The next 48 hours turned Atlanta upside down. Everywhere Rasheeda went, eyes followed her, phones lifted, people whispering. The boutique that once overflowed with fans now stood quiet, staff avoiding her gaze, unsure what to say. Kirk stayed locked inside his office, taking calls that seemed to end worse than they began. One by one, his investors backed out, their voices cold and clipped. "Too much heat right now," one said before hanging up. Michelle, on the other hand, wasn't backing down. She appeared on another interview, this time on a popular podcast. "I told y'all, years ago," Michelle said, voice steady. "Kirk had deals that didn't add up. I tried to warn Rasheeda. She called me jealous. Now look." The hosts gasped, pretending to be shocked, but they knew controversy kept the lights on. By nightfall, hashtags like #Justice for Rasheeda and #Kirk Exposed flooded Twitter. Fans argued in threads, posting old clips, editing montages of moments that now made sense. One video replayed the scene where Rasheeda once defended Kirk during a reunion special, the caption reading, "She protected him while he was plotting against her." It hit 1 million views in less than 2 hours. Kirk scrolled through the chaos, his jaw tightening. "They acting like I'm some monster," he said to himself. But deep down, he knew. The emails were real. The money trail was there. And now that Michelle had opened the door, more people were coming forward. An ex-employee leaked voice messages of Kirk promising silent payouts to keep the scheme buried. Another posted screenshots of transfers tied to the Jamaican shell company. Blogs ate it up like fire. By the next morning, even the news networks were running segments titled, "Reality Star Under Investigation for Boutique Fraud." Cameras camped outside their gate again. Rasheeda stood at the window, her reflection pale. She could hear reporters shouting her name, asking if she was pressing charges. She didn't answer. She didn't know yet. Kirk came up behind her, voice soft. "We can fix this." She turned to him slowly. "We," she said. "You mean you?" He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I built everything we have with my name, and you used it like a mask." Tears filled her eyes, but her voice stayed firm. "You made me a joke." He stared at her, speechless. Downstairs, his phone rang again. It was Devin, his partner, now furious. Bro, they're freezing the last of the accounts. We're done. They're saying we falsified supplier contracts. I'm not going down for you, Kirk shouted. Don't you hang up on me. But the line was already dead. When he looked back, Rasheeda was gone. She had grabbed her purse and walked straight past the cameras, straight to her car. Photographers swarmed, flashing lights in her face. One shouted, "Rasheeda, are you divorcing Kirk?" She didn't answer. She just drove off. Her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Kay. "Michelle. No threats, no gossip. Just one line. You deserve better." Rasheeda stared at it, then deleted it. She wasn't ready to see herself as a victim. Not yet. That night, Kirk's past came crashing down harder. A local journalist published leaked court filings showing his name tied to offshore accounts. One paragraph mentioned potential tax evasion and unauthorized brand licensing under Rasheeda's signature. Within minutes, the internet labeled him Atlanta's biggest scammer. Fans flooded Rasheeda's Instagram, leaving thousands of comments begging her to speak out. When she finally did, it wasn't what anyone expected. She went live no makeup, no script. "I don't know what y'all want me to say," she began, her voice low and steady. "I'm embarrassed. I'm hurt. But I'm not broken. What happened behind closed doors wasn't business, it was betrayal. I built something with love, and it got used." Thousands watched in silence. Kirk appeared briefly in the background, pacing, then walked off screen. Rasheeda continued, "This ain't about fame. This ain't about blogs. This about trust. And once that's gone, you can't buy it back." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she ended the live. Within minutes, clips spread everywhere. Celebrities reposted it. Fans called her brave, and even critics admitted it was raw and real. But while the world rallied behind her, Kirk's downfall accelerated. The next day, federal agents arrived with subpoenas. Kirk tried to act calm, telling them it was a misunderstanding. But when they handed him the documents, the color drained from his face. "Sir, we just need you to cooperate," one agent said. He nodded slowly, but inside, panic churned. He knew too much had already surfaced. Later that evening, a journalist revealed that some funds had been traced directly to a property in Jamaica, the same villa Kirk had claimed was for business retreats. Fans online began connecting more dots, suggesting he had hidden money overseas. Others claimed he had another woman managing operations there. Rumors turned into a wildfire of headlines. Kirk's secret Jamaican empire. Rasheeda played while Kirk paid. Michelle watched all of it from her living room, her phone buzzing. "You did it," her manager said. "You cracked the truth wide open." She shook her head. "Nah," she whispered. The truth cracked itself. Still, she couldn't help but feel a strange sadness. She never wanted to see Rasheeda, broken only free. Back at the Frost house, silence filled every corner. Kirk sat alone, scrolling through messages from old friends who had suddenly gone quiet. The empire was gone. The respect, gone. All that remained was guilt. When Rasheeda finally came home that night, she didn't say a word. She just walked past him, leaving her wedding ring on the kitchen counter before heading upstairs. Kirk stared at it for a long time, his reflection trembling in the polished gold. He whispered, "I never meant to lose you." Outside, cameras flashed as word spread that she'd moved out. Fans posted support messages under her latest photo, calling her a queen for walking away. By midnight, "Rasheeda deserves peace" was trending worldwide. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, a fitting echo for everything that had finally fallen apart. The next morning, Atlanta was buzzing more than ever as Rasheeda emerged from her private retreat, ready to face the world again. Her eyes sharp, her posture unwavering, though the weight of betrayal still lingered on her shoulders. Fans gathered outside her boutique, holding signs of support and snapping pictures, while reporters tried to push through the crowd, shouting questions about Kirk, the shell companies, and whether she was finally divorcing him. But Rasheeda walked past them silently, entering the store and locking the doors behind her, leaving a trail of whispers in her wake. And inside, her team had already gathered, presenting the latest findings from the forensic accountants she had hired, charts and spreadsheets detailing transactions that made Kirk's excuses impossible to believe, emails, bank transfers, and contracts, all meticulously organized, showing just how deep the deception went. And Rasheeda, standing at the head of the table, looked at each person in the eyes and said, "We're going to fix this. And no one is going to lie about my name again." While outside, social media continued to erupt with clips of Michelle explaining how she had tried to warn Rasheeda years ago, her voice calm but cutting, her words amplified by millions who shared and reposted them with captions like "She saw it coming" and "Rasheeda deserved better." And Kirk, meanwhile, had retreated into hiding, his phone flooded with unanswered calls, emails, and messages from former business partners who wanted nothing to do with him. And he realized with every passing hour that the empire he had tried to manipulate was crumbling. Every connection severed, every ally gone, leaving him isolated and exposed as bloggers, influencers, and fans pieced together his schemes like a puzzle, one revealing more lies than the last, some showing offshore accounts, others pointing to unreported income, fake invoices, and misappropriated funds that now had the potential to land him in serious legal trouble. And as he sat scrolling through the chaos, he noticed Rasheeda posting a live story, a simple video of her walking through her boutique with the caption, "Rebuilding, one step at a time." And in that moment, the public began to rally behind her, offering words of encouragement, pledging to support her brand, while commentators dissected Kirk's every move, calling out his audacity, his deception, and the fact that someone who had claimed to be loyal had in reality orchestrated a scam that touched everyone who had trusted him. And the pressure kept mounting as journalists obtained copies of contracts that revealed Kirk had signed agreements under false pretenses, promising funds that never existed, moving money into accounts meant to vanish. And the more these documents circulated, the more his credibility dissolved, turning old fans into critics, former allies into witnesses, and by the end of the day, even legal advisors suggested that Kirk might have to face federal scrutiny, all while Rasheeda maintained her composure, meeting with her accountants, her lawyers, and her closest confidants, planning her next steps, making sure every detail was covered, understanding that her reputation was as valuable as the money lost. And as night fell, she took a quiet moment alone, reflecting on the storm that had almost destroyed her, the betrayal that had cut deep, yet also the strength she had discovered within herself, realizing that while Kirk's actions had shaken her world, they could not define her future, and she would rise from the ashes of deception, stronger, smarter, and more cautious, preparing to rebuild everything that had been tainted, reclaiming control over her life and business, and the city of Atlanta, along with the millions following the drama online, watched in awe as a woman wronged refused to be broken, turning the scandal into a testament of resilience and power, while Kirk, isolated and frantic, understood for the first time the consequences of his choices, the ripple effect of his deceit, and how every lie, every hidden account, every manipulated signature had finally caught up to him, leaving him with nothing but the weight of his own actions. And as the night deepened, Rasheeda's boutique lights glowed warmly, a beacon of recovery and determination, signaling that the story was far from over, yet a new chapter of empowerment and vindication had begun, witnessed by fans, critics, and the media alike, all captivated by the drama, the heartbreak, and the relentless courage of a woman who refused to be a victim. The next week was a whirlwind of chaos, gossip, and relentless scrutiny as Atlanta's social media feeds exploded with new claims, screenshots, and alleged insider information about Kirk Frost's dealings, with fans dissecting every image, every post, and every clip to piece together what many called the ultimate betrayal saga, while Rasheeda, though exhausted and emotionally drained, refused to be swept away by the noise. She spent her mornings reviewing documents with her legal team, tracing every suspicious transaction, confirming every hidden account, and mapping out a clear path to reclaiming her name and her business empire, all while keeping her public appearances minimal, knowing that every word she spoke would be dissected, manipulated, and turned into fodder for blogs, talk shows, and viral clips. And Michelle remained an invisible yet powerful ally, sharing subtle messages online that encouraged Rasheeda's fans to stay supportive, posting quotes about empowerment, truth, and resilience without directly naming anyone, fueling speculation while keeping herself safely detached from the fallout, and the blogs loved it, calling her the whistleblower of the decade, linking past footage where she had hinted at Kirk's shady practices. And suddenly, everything she had said years ago gained a new, terrifying clarity that made fans wonder how long Rasheeda had really been in the dark, while Kirk, increasingly isolated and frantic, began making desperate calls to former partners, some of whom refused to answer, others warning him to lawyer up immediately. And every call seemed to go wrong, amplifying his paranoia and anxiety. He started pacing his mansion at night, muttering to himself, repeating over and over, "This can't be real. They can't do this to me. It's not supposed to happen like this." While outside, the paparazzi and fans speculated wildly, capturing glimpses of him walking on the balcony, hair disheveled, shirt untucked, eyes darting from side to side, and the images spread like wildfire, with captions ranging from Kirk meltdown to Rasheeda's nightmare husband exposed, fueling the drama to levels no one thought possible. And in the midst of all this, Rasheeda finally decided to make her first official public statement since the scandal broke. She scheduled an exclusive interview with a major entertainment network. And when the cameras rolled, she walked in with her head held high, dressed simply but elegantly, her voice steady yet layered with the raw emotion of someone who had been betrayed deeply yet refused to collapse under the weight of the world's judgment. And she said, "I've spent years building something with my own hands, with honesty, integrity, and heart, and to watch it almost be stolen, to watch lies circulate in my name, it's been painful, but I refuse to be silenced. I refuse to be shamed, and I refuse to let betrayal define me." And the interviewer nodded, stunned by her composure, while Kirk's latest attempt at damage control via social media collapsed in real time, fans ripping apart his words, pointing out inconsistencies, and comparing his claims to the leaked documents showing shell accounts, offshore transfers, and falsified invoices, which, when paired with the viral clips of Michelle speaking out, painted a damning picture of calculated deception, and in a twist that no one anticipated, one of Kirk's former associates decided to come forward on camera, alleging that he had personally witnessed Kirk directing funds to accounts under false pretenses, whispering instructions to hide the money and obscure the trail, which sent the gossip blogs into overdrive. Headlines like "Inside Kirk Frost's Secret Empire" and "Rasheeda's Husband Exposed by Insider" dominating searches and trending topics for days, while Rasheeda's fans continued to rally, sharing her interview clip, posting supportive messages, and inundating the networks with requests for updates, turning what could have been a private tragedy into a public saga that no one could ignore. And as the days passed, Rasheeda began slowly reclaiming control over her business, contacting her suppliers, clarifying accounts, and personally overseeing the reopening of her boutique with a renewed sense of vigilance and determination, refusing to let anyone manipulate her name again. While Kirk, meanwhile, grew increasingly desperate, his once powerful aura replaced with fear, isolation, and a gnawing realization that every decision he had made was now unraveling in real time for the world to witness, and his calls to former friends, family members, and partners were either ignored or returned with sharp warnings that he needed legal counsel, while bloggers and commentators dissected every known detail of his life, speculating about undisclosed accounts, previous business ventures, and potential legal consequences, creating a whirlwind of scrutiny that left Kirk pacing, arguing with anyone who would listen, muttering about conspiracy, betrayal, and unfair targeting. But the momentum had already shifted irrevocably in Rasheeda's favor, and she, aware of the public's attention, used it strategically, posting subtle videos and images showing her calmly managing her boutique, smiling with employees, and making business calls, conveying an image of resilience, grace, and reclaimed authority, all while the scandal continued to dominate headlines, creating a perfect storm of emotion, drama, and suspense that had Atlanta glued to their screens, waiting for the next revelation in a story that had become as much about personal betrayal as it was about power, money, and survival. And as the week drew to a close, a mysterious package arrived at Rasheeda's boutique addressed simply to her, with no return address, containing a folder filled with documents labeled Kirk Frost, undisclosed accounts, and correspondence. And the moment she opened it, her breath caught in her throat, realizing that while she had already survived one wave of deception, a new layer of secrets was now laid bare, promising yet more twists, more revelations, and a reminder that in the world of betrayal and hidden agendas, the truth rarely comes in a straight line. And just when she thought she had reached the edge of Kirk's lies, she realized there was still much more to uncover, and her heart raced with a mix of fear, curiosity, and determination, knowing that she had to face it all head-on, because only by confronting the full extent of the deceit could she truly reclaim her life, her brand, and her peace, while the public, still captivated by the drama, waited with bated breath for the next chapter in the scandal that had shaken Atlanta to its core, a story of betrayal, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of a woman who refused to let lies define her future. The following days became a blur of media frenzy, legal consultations, and private reckonings as Rasheeda immersed herself in reclaiming what had been nearly stolen from her, her boutique now a fortress of determination where staff moved quietly but efficiently, carrying out instructions with precision as she pored over emails, bank statements, and contracts that revealed layers of deception she had never imagined. Outside, the city's gossip engines were running non-stop, fans dissecting every detail, uploading videos, screenshots, and theories about Kirk Frost's alleged schemes, some calling him Atlanta's greatest betrayer, others labeling him a mastermind of manipulation, while Michelle maintained a subtle but commanding presence online, sharing posts about truth, empowerment, and resilience without ever directly naming Kirk, fueling speculation and keeping the narrative alive. And each day, new pieces of evidence emerged, former associates coming forward anonymously to reveal that Kirk had instructed them to move money through shell accounts, falsify invoices, and manipulate records, leaving a trail that could not easily be erased. And these revelations sparked debates across talk shows, podcasts, and live streams, as commentators analyzed the documents, replayed old reunion clips, and speculated on the potential legal consequences, all while Rasheeda remained silent publicly, choosing her actions over words, knowing that her every statement could be twisted, misinterpreted, or used against her. And at night, she would sit alone in her office, reviewing the files, her eyes red from sleeplessness, thinking of the years she had invested in the brand, the trust she had given to Kirk, and the weight of betrayal that had almost destroyed her. Realizing that this was more than a business issue, it was deeply personal, an assault on her life, her identity, and the image she had cultivated for decades, while Kirk, increasingly cornered, oscillated between frantic attempts at control and denial, calling old friends, partners, and even family members, pleading for support, explanations, or just a sympathetic ear, only to be met with silence, angry retorts, or legal warnings. And his social media posts became increasingly erratic, alternating between defensive proclamations and desperate attempts to spin the story. But every attempt backfired, fans dissecting each clip, meme, and comment, creating a storm of ridicule and condemnation. And one evening, the climax of this internal chaos reached a dramatic peak when a journalist uploaded footage from a private meeting Kirk had attempted to hide, showing him speaking in low tones to an unidentified accountant, referencing offshore accounts, hidden transfers, and instructions to make sure no one traces it back to us. And as the video went viral, hashtags like #KirkExposed and #RASHEEDA justice flooded social media, the engagement numbers soaring into the millions as viewers dissected every frame, creating waves of outrage, disbelief, and fascination that made this story transcend traditional gossip, turning it into a cultural spectacle. And Rasheeda, observing the chaos from her boutique, realized that while Kirk's web of lies was vast, the public scrutiny could now be a tool to reclaim her name, to expose what had been hidden, and to take control of the narrative that had threatened to ruin her. And she began planning meticulously, consulting with attorneys, accountants, and even digital forensic experts to map out a strategy that would protect her, strengthen her brand, and hold Kirk accountable. And during this process, her emotional journey was palpable, moments of anger where she slammed files onto the desk, shouting at the empty room, followed by deep sighs of fatigue, and nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, replaying betrayals, replaying the moments she had trusted Kirk blindly. And yet, amidst the chaos, she discovered a reservoir of resilience she had never fully acknowledged, a determination that refused to bend to fear, manipulation, or public scrutiny. And as she prepared for the next public statement, her social media accounts carefully curated, every post intentional, she understood that the fight was not only about reclaiming her empire but about asserting her dignity, her autonomy, and her narrative. And this realization gave her a clarity and calm that belied the storm around her, while Kirk, sensing the tide turning irrevocably against him, grew more erratic, appearing in private videos with shaky hands, attempting to explain, justify, or minimize his actions. Yet each explanation contradicted the evidence, the emails, the leaked documents, and the growing chorus of voices from former associates, all converging to create an almost inescapable pressure. And as the legal consequences loomed closer, Rasheeda found herself negotiating multiple fronts, protecting her finances, reassuring employees, managing fan expectations, and preparing for any public confrontation, all while maintaining her composure, projecting confidence, and embodying the strength she wanted the world to see. And then came the day when she received an anonymous tip via email, containing scanned documents showing additional transactions that Kirk had attempted to obscure, funds moving through complex networks, shell companies, and offshore accounts. And the realization struck her: this wasn't just a betrayal of trust, it was a meticulously orchestrated manipulation that spanned years, layers, and continents. And armed with this new evidence, Rasheeda called her legal team into an emergency meeting, their faces tense, voices hushed as they spread the documents across the table, analyzing every line, noting every irregularity. And as she looked at each person in the room, she felt a surge of resolve. understanding that this was her chance to finally reclaim control, to expose the full extent of Kirk's actions, and to protect herself and her legacy. And as night fell over Atlanta, the city remained abuzz. Social media still erupting, fans still speculating, and Kirk, isolated and frantic, pacing the mansion, phone clutched tightly, realizing that the empire he had attempted to manipulate for years was crumbling. The evidence undeniable, the public opinion against him, and the legal repercussions inevitable, while Rasheeda, in her boutique, sitting quietly among her staff, felt a rare moment of calm, knowing that though the storm had been fierce, she was emerging stronger, wiser, and ready to confront whatever came next. The next revelation, the next confrontation, or the next twist in a saga that had already captivated a city, a nation, and a global audience, and she understood fully that this fight was far from over. But for the first time since the scandal began, she felt in control, empowered, and unbroken, ready to face Kirk, the public, and the world on her terms, armed with truth, evidence, and the undeniable strength of a woman who had survived betrayal and was determined to rise, no matter the cost. The following days escalated into a dramatic crescendo as every corner of Atlanta seemed to buzz with Kirk Frost's unraveling. Fans and journalists alike tracking each move, each missed call, each desperate attempt to explain away the mounting evidence, while Rasheeda's focus remained sharp, strategic, and unrelenting, working with her lawyers and financial experts to trace every transaction, every suspicious signature, and every offshore account linked to Kirk, piecing together a story of deceit that spanned years and touched everyone who had trusted him. And as the evidence mounted, Michelle maintained her quiet but powerful presence, posting messages of empowerment, encouragement, and accountability, which, without directly naming anyone, made it clear to the public where her loyalty and insight lay. And the media coverage intensified when a whistleblower, previously unknown, released audio recordings of Kirk discussing hidden transfers, falsified contracts, and attempts to divert funds away from their shared businesses, sending shockwaves across social media, with fans dissecting every tone, every word, every pause, comparing it against leaked emails, bank records, and past public appearances. And in the midst of this chaos, Rasheeda prepared for what would become one of the most pivotal moments in her public life, an exclusive live interview where she would confront the allegations, the betrayal, and the impact on her brand head-on, carefully scripting nothing while preparing to speak nothing but truth. And as cameras rolled, she entered the studio with a calm intensity, every eye in the room drawn to her presence, every journalist, every producer, every technician sensing the gravity of what was about to unfold. And she began, voice steady yet layered with emotion. I've spent years building something meaningful, something rooted in trust, integrity, and hard work. And to see it nearly destroyed by someone I loved and trusted is devastating. But I refuse to be defined by their actions. While the footage quickly went viral, clips circulating with captions like "Rasheeda stands strong" and "The truth comes out," fueling discussions, debates, and widespread admiration from fans, influencers, and even fellow celebrities. And Kirk, watching from his mansion, his face pale and voice trembling, attempted a response via social media, posting videos of himself insisting innocence, claiming misunderstandings, and pleading for patience. Yet every post was met with skepticism, and immediate rebuttals from fans and media, the contrast between his desperation and Rasheeda's composed strength sparking further intrigue. While outside the boutique, supporters and journalists gathered in equal measure, some waving signs of solidarity, others demanding answers. And through it all, Rasheeda remained a figure of calm authority, moving through her team, reviewing accounts, making phone calls, and reassuring employees, projecting an image of a woman unshaken in the face of public scandal, yet privately feeling the weight of every betrayal, every manipulated deal, and every lost opportunity orchestrated by Kirk. And as the days unfolded, more layers of his deception were revealed, hidden contracts, unauthorized transactions, and business dealings that had been kept secret from Rasheeda and the public. Each revelation adding fuel to the fire, intensifying the drama, and expanding the narrative into an international spectacle, while Michelle's cautious commentary kept the conversation alive, her strategic posts guiding public perception without entangling herself directly, allowing fans to interpret her messages as confirmations of what they already suspected, further isolating Kirk, who now faced mounting pressure from legal authorities, investors, and former associates, and his frantic attempts to regain control only amplified the perception of guilt. His videos and posts increasingly incoherent, contradictory, and desperate. As the evidence against him became irrefutable. And then came the tipping point. Leaked financial statements showing offshore transfers, shell accounts, and falsified invoices tied directly to Kirk, sparking legal investigations and making it clear that his actions could have severe consequences. While Rasheeda, armed with her own forensic team, began to prepare for the possibility of reclaiming not just her public image but also control over any remaining assets tied to their joint ventures, all while keeping her composure, maintaining her public image, and projecting resilience and strategic intelligence to the world. And the public response was immediate. Fans posting messages of support, praising her courage, and condemning Kirk. The narratives spreading across social media with hashtags like hashtag Kirk exposed, and hashtag truth prevails, while analysts dissected every transaction, every email, every leaked conversation, constructing a detailed timeline of deception, betrayal, and near catastrophe. And as the story continued to unfold, it became clear that this was no longer a personal scandal but a public saga of manipulation, power, and resilience. With Rasheeda emerging not only as a victim but as a symbol of strength and determination in the face of immense adversity. And as the week drew to a close, she made a public statement on her social media channels, posting a short video of herself walking through her boutique. The lights warm, employees attentive, her demeanor calm but authoritative, simply stating, "I've survived betrayal, deception, and lies, and I will continue to move forward with integrity, strength, and focus." While the public reaction was overwhelming, thousands commenting in support, sharing the clip, and reinforcing her status as a resilient figure who refused to be defeated. And Kirk, faced with mounting evidence, media scrutiny, legal investigations, and public condemnation, retreated further into isolation, his previous confidence replaced by panic, regret, and desperation, as he realized that the life he had tried to manipulate, the empire he had tried to control, and the public image he had tried to craft were all crumbling in real time, leaving him alone, exposed, and powerless. And yet Rasheeda, having navigated the storm with clarity, courage, and intelligence, now stood ready to reclaim her life, her brand, and her narrative, demonstrating to the world that even in the face of profound betrayal, resilience, strategy, and truth could prevail. And the story, far from over, continued to captivate, shock, and inspire everyone who followed it. A tale of deception, empowerment, and the unyielding strength of a woman determined to rise above the chaos. The storm surrounding Kirk Frost continued to escalate as Atlanta, social media, and entertainment networks remained fixated on the unfolding saga, with each day bringing new revelations, leaked documents, and testimonies from former associates that painted an increasingly damning picture of his business dealings. While Rasheeda, ever composed, navigated the chaos with precision, reviewing contracts, emails, and financial records alongside her legal and accounting teams, tracing each suspicious transfer, each offshore account, and each falsified invoice to fully understand the breadth of Kirk's deception. And the more she uncovered, the clearer it became that the betrayal went far deeper than she had imagined, touching not just her finances and brand but the very foundation of trust and partnership that she had believed existed. While Michelle continued her subtle but impactful presence, sharing messages online about empowerment, resilience, and accountability without ever explicitly naming Kirk, fueling speculation and keeping public attention sharply focused on the unfolding drama. And as news outlets picked up on each new development, including recordings of Kirk instructing others to hide assets, falsify documents, and manipulate financial statements, the public narrative began to shift irrevocably in Rasheeda's favor, with fans and influencers alike lauding her composure, strategic intelligence, and courage in confronting a betrayal that could have easily destroyed her career. And even as Kirk scrambled to defend himself, posting inconsistent explanations and desperate social media statements, the growing body of evidence, coupled with leaks from insiders and financial experts, rendered his attempts at damage control increasingly futile, amplifying public scrutiny and heightening the perception of guilt. And one evening, as Rasheeda prepared for a pivotal live interview, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point, the years of building her brand, the trust she had placed in Kirk, the sting of betrayal, and the relentless pressure of public opinion. And, when the cameras rolled, she entered with a calm intensity, every movement measured, every glance deliberate, and as she spoke, voice steady but rich with emotion, she recounted the truth of her experience, describing not just the financial manipulation but the personal betrayal, the calculated deceit, and the relentless campaign to undermine her reputation. While the interview, quickly shared across platforms, went viral, clips spreading with captions like "Rasheeda stands strong" and "Betrayal exposed," drawing millions of views and igniting discussions, debates, and waves of support from fans, celebrities, and media commentators, further isolating Kirk, who, confronted with the unstoppable tide of public scrutiny, legal investigations, and the mounting evidence, found himself increasingly cornered, desperate, and disoriented, as every attempt to explain, justify, or minimize his actions was met with rebuttals, contradictions, and exposure of inconsistencies. And as more insiders came forward, each revealing additional details about unauthorized transfers, shell accounts, and hidden agreements, the narrative solidified. Kirk Frost had orchestrated a scheme of betrayal that extended far beyond the personal, implicating him in actions that threatened his financial, professional, and personal future. And throughout this relentless exposure, Rasheeda maintained her focus, not on revenge, but on reclaiming her life, her brand, and her autonomy, moving carefully, strategically, and deliberately, communicating through her social media, carefully curated appearances, and private consultations to ensure that every step she took strengthened her position, projected authority, and maintained her dignity, while outside observers marveled at her poise, resilience, and strategic acumen, recognizing that her handling of the scandal demonstrated not just survival but empowerment. And as the week drew to a close, another bombshell surfaced, an anonymous package delivered to her boutique containing additional documents, revealing yet more hidden transactions, secret accounts, and evidence of Kirk's calculated attempts to obscure the truth. And as she reviewed the files, her resolve hardened, knowing that while the storm was far from over, she had reached a point where she could fully confront the deception, reclaim control, and ensure that the truth, once hidden, was now undeniably clear. And as the city, fans, and media continued to follow every development with bated breath, Rasheeda emerged not just as a victim of betrayal but as a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and unwavering strength, ready to face whatever came next with determination, strategy, and the certainty that, in the battle of truth versus deception, she would prevail, while Kirk, increasingly isolated, desperate, and exposed, faced the full consequences of the life he had constructed on lies, realizing that the empire, a woman unshaken in the face of public scandal, yet privately feeling the weight of every betrayal, every manipulated deal, and every lost opportunity orchestrated by Kirk. And as the days unfolded, more layers of his deception were revealed, hidden contracts, unauthorized transactions, and business dealings that had been kept secret from Rasheeda and the public, each revelation adding fuel to the fire, intensifying the drama, and expanding the narrative into an international spectacle, while Michelle's cautious commentary kept the conversation alive, her strategic posts guiding public perception without entangling herself directly, allowing fans to interpret her messages as confirmations of what they already suspected, further isolating Kirk, who now faced mounting pressure from legal authorities, investors, and former associates, and his frantic attempts to regain control only amplified the perception of guilt, his videos and posts increasingly incoherent, contradictory, and desperate, as the evidence against him became irrefutable. And then came the tipping point: leaked financial statements showing offshore transfers, shell accounts, and falsified invoices tied directly to Kirk, sparking legal investigations and making it clear that his actions could have severe consequences, while Rasheeda, armed with her own forensic team, began to prepare for the possibility of reclaiming not just her public image but also control over any remaining assets tied to their joint ventures, all while keeping her composure, maintaining her public image, and projecting resilience and strategic intelligence to the world. And the public response was immediate, fans posting messages of support, praising her courage, and condemning Kirk. The narrative spreading across social media with hashtags like hashtag Kirk exposed, and hashtag truth prevails, while analysts dissected every transaction, every email, every leaked conversation, constructing a detailed timeline of deception, betrayal, and near catastrophe. And as the story continued to unfold, it became clear that this was no longer a personal scandal but a public saga of manipulation, power, and resilience, with Rasheeda emerging not only as a victim but as a symbol of strength and determination in the face of immense adversity. And as the week drew to a close, she made a public statement on her social media channels, posting a short video of herself walking through her boutique, the lights warm, employees attentive, her demeanor calm but authoritative, simply stating, "I've survived betrayal, deception, and lies. And I will continue to move forward with integrity, strength, and focus. While the public reaction was overwhelming, thousands commenting in support, sharing the clip, and reinforcing her status as a resilient figure who refused to be defeated. And Kirk, faced with mounting evidence, media scrutiny, legal investigations, and public condemnation, retreated further into isolation, his previous confidence replaced by panic, regret, and desperation, as he realized that the life he had tried to manipulate, the empire he had tried to control, and the public image he had tried to craft were all crumbling in real time, leaving him alone, exposed, and powerless. And yet Rasheeda, having navigated the storm with clarity, courage, and intelligence, now stood ready to reclaim her life, her brand, and her narrative, demonstrating to the world that even in the face of profound betrayal, resilience, strategy, and truth could prevail. And the story, far from over, continued to captivate, shock, and inspire everyone who followed it. A tale of deception, empowerment, and the unyielding strength of a woman determined to rise above the chaos. The storm surrounding Kirk Frost continued to escalate as Atlanta, social media, and entertainment networks remained fixated on the unfolding saga, with each day bringing new revelations, leaked documents, and testimonies from former associates that painted an increasingly damning picture of his business dealings. While Rasheeda, ever composed, navigated the chaos with precision, reviewing contracts, emails, and financial records alongside her legal and accounting teams, tracing each suspicious transfer, each offshore account, and each falsified invoice to fully understand the breadth of Kirk's deception. And the more she uncovered, the clearer it became that the betrayal went far deeper than she had imagined, touching not just her finances and brand but the very foundation of trust and partnership that she had believed existed. While Michelle continued her subtle but impactful presence, sharing messages online about empowerment, resilience, and accountability without ever explicitly naming Kirk, fueling speculation and keeping public attention sharply focused on the unfolding drama. And as news outlets picked up on each new development, including recordings of Kirk instructing others to hide assets, falsify documents, and manipulate financial statements, the public narrative began to shift irrevocably in Rasheeda's favor, with fans and influencers alike lauding her composure, strategic intelligence, and courage in confronting a betrayal that could have easily destroyed her career. And even as Kirk scrambled to defend himself, posting inconsistent explanations and desperate social media statements, the growing body of evidence, coupled with leaks from insiders and financial experts, rendered his attempts at damage control increasingly futile, amplifying public scrutiny and heightening the perception of guilt. And one evening, as Rasheeda prepared for a pivotal live interview, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point, the years of building her brand, the trust she had placed in Kirk, the sting of betrayal, and the relentless pressure of public opinion. And, when the cameras rolled, she entered with a calm intensity, every movement measured, every glance deliberate, and as she spoke, voice steady but rich with emotion, she recounted the truth of her experience, describing not just the financial manipulation but the personal betrayal, the calculated deceit, and the relentless campaign to undermine her reputation. While the interview, quickly shared across platforms, went viral, clips spreading with captions like "Rasheeda stands strong" and "Betrayal exposed," drawing millions of views and igniting discussions, debates, and waves of support from fans, celebrities, and media commentators, further isolating Kirk, who, confronted with the unstoppable tide of public scrutiny, legal investigations, and the mounting evidence, found himself increasingly cornered, desperate, and disoriented, as every attempt to explain, justify, or minimize his actions was met with rebuttals, contradictions, and exposure of inconsistencies. And as more insiders came forward, each revealing additional details about unauthorized transfers, shell accounts, and hidden agreements, the narrative solidified. Kirk Frost had orchestrated a scheme of betrayal that extended far beyond the personal, implicating him in actions that threatened his financial, professional, and personal future. And throughout this relentless exposure, Rasheeda maintained her focus, not on revenge, but on reclaiming her life, her brand, and her autonomy, moving carefully, strategically, and deliberately, communicating through her social media, carefully curated appearances, and private consultations to ensure that every step she took strengthened her position, projected authority, and maintained her dignity, while outside observers marveled at her poise, resilience, and strategic acumen, recognizing that her handling of the scandal demonstrated not just survival but empowerment. And as the week drew to a close, another bombshell surfaced, an anonymous package delivered to her boutique containing additional documents, revealing yet more hidden transactions, secret accounts, and evidence of Kirk's calculated attempts to obscure the truth. And as she reviewed the files, her resolve hardened, knowing that while the storm was far from over, she had reached a point where she could fully confront the deception, reclaim control, and ensure that the truth, once hidden, was now undeniably clear. And as the city, fans, and media continued to follow every development with bated breath, Rasheeda emerged not just as a victim of betrayal but as a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and unwavering strength, ready to face whatever came next with determination, strategy, and the certainty that, in the battle of truth versus deception, she would prevail, while Kirk, increasingly isolated, desperate, and exposed, faced the full consequences of the life he had constructed on lies, realizing that the empire he had manipulated, the trust he had violated, and the public perception he had underestimated were now all forces beyond his control. And in this collision of ambition, betrayal, and resilience, the story captivated an audience hungry for drama, justice, and the rare glimpse of a woman who, against all odds, refused to be broken, standing tall as the architect of her own survival. Navigating a landscape of scandal, manipulation, and public spectacle with unwavering focus, and as the night settled over Atlanta, the city seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the next revelation, the next confrontation, and the continued unfolding of a saga that had become more than entertainment. It was a study in deception, courage, and the indomitable human spirit. The following week, the tension surrounding Kirk Frost's actions reached an almost unbearable level as every social media platform, blog, and gossip outlets seemed to breathe life into the story. Each new revelation magnifying the drama, and Rasheeda, who had weathered so many storms in her career, now found herself navigating a tempest of betrayal that was as personal as it was public. Her boutique transformed into a command center where lawyers, accountants, and trusted staff coordinated with meticulous care, analyzing every email, contract, and financial transaction that Kirk had tried to conceal, mapping a web of deceit that spanned years, offshore accounts, shell companies, falsified invoices, and manipulated business deals, while outside, fans and journalists alike were glued to their screens, dissecting every clip, post, and statement, debating the authenticity of documents, the implications of leaked recordings, and the motives behind every move. And Michelle, ever the subtle yet influential figure, continued her quiet but powerful presence online, posting messages about truth, accountability, and empowerment, which, without naming anyone directly, reinforced the narrative that Rasheeda had been wronged while allowing the public to interpret the posts as confirmation of what they already suspected, creating a perfect storm of scrutiny, curiosity, and public engagement that Kirk could neither control nor counteract. And inside the boutique, Rasheeda's focus was absolute, her mind calculating every step, every legal move, every potential public statement, while internally she battled waves of emotion, anger at the betrayal, frustration at the nearly catastrophic damage to her business, sadness at the personal trust that had been shattered, and a deep, burning determination to reclaim her life, her name, and her power. And the pressure escalated further when a previously anonymous whistleblower came forward, revealing on camera that Kirk had orchestrated a complex scheme to divert funds into accounts under false pretenses, instructed employees to falsify records, and manipulate contracts to his advantage, the footage going viral almost instantly, with hashtags like #KirkExposed, #JusticeForRasheeda, and #Betrayal Uncovered trending within hours, sparking widespread outrage and renewed calls for legal accountability, while Kirk, increasingly desperate, attempted to salvage his image through erratic social media posts, videos, and statements that only amplified his public downfall. Each claim contradicted by mounting evidence, each denial dismantled by leaked documents, and each attempt at spinning the story scrutinized by millions. And as the days passed, Rasheeda's strategy of quiet diligence, careful public statements, and calculated exposure of facts began to solidify her position, shifting public perception firmly in her favor, her fans rallying behind her, sharing updates, and defending her on forums, social media, and live streams, while Kirk found himself isolated, increasingly frantic, and aware that his previous influence, power, and reputation were crumbling rapidly. And then came the pivotal moment that would define the trajectory of the scandal, an exclusive live interview where Rasheeda confronted the betrayal head-on, walking into the studio with calm authority, every movement precise, every glance deliberate, her presence commanding, and as she spoke, her voice steady but charged with the raw emotion of someone who had endured deception yet refused to be broken. She recounted the manipulation, the hidden transactions, and the personal betrayal, describing with clarity and courage the calculated nature of Kirk's actions, the depth of deceit, and the impact it had on her life and business, while clips from the interview quickly spread online, drawing millions of views, thousands of shares, and a flood of supportive comments, the public captivated by the narrative of resilience, truth, and empowerment, as commentators dissected every word, every nuance, and every implication. Further isolating Kirk, who now under immense pressure, attempted to defend himself in increasingly incoherent videos and statements. Each post further eroding his credibility, while new insiders continued to release information, revealing additional details about unauthorized transfers, falsified documents, and secret deals, confirming and expanding on the evidence Rasheeda and her team had painstakingly assembled. And the legal ramifications grew clearer by the day, with experts analyzing the leaked documents, creating timelines of fraud, and speculating about potential charges, while the public remained glued to every update, sharing their outrage, support, and analysis. And in this climate, Rasheeda emerged not just as a victim of betrayal but as a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and empowerment, carefully balancing her public image with her private strategies, reclaiming control of her boutique, reinforcing relationships with suppliers, and personally ensuring that her brand remained untarnished, projecting strength while carefully navigating the emotional weight of the scandal. And the tension reached new heights when yet another set of documents arrived anonymously at her office, revealing additional hidden transactions, offshore accounts, and complex financial maneuvers orchestrated by Kirk. A reminder that the depth of his deception was vast, but also an opportunity for Rasheeda to fully confront the extent of the betrayal, secure her assets, and expose the truth, while Atlanta, social media, and entertainment networks remained captivated, following each development with bated breath, analyzing every detail, and fueling a narrative that had evolved from personal betrayal to a public saga of deceit, resilience, and accountability. And as the city watched, Rasheeda's demeanor remained calm, composed, and authoritative, a masterclass in turning crisis into strategy, betrayal into empowerment, and public scrutiny into a tool for reclaiming agency, while Kirk, increasingly isolated, frantic, and desperate, faced the consequences of every lie, every secret, and every unethical decision he had made. The empire he had attempted to manipulate now crumbling, the public opinion turning decisively against him, and the legal and financial repercussions looming ever larger, leaving him powerless, exposed, and aware that the narrative had permanently shifted, while Rasheeda, armed with clarity, evidence, and an unbreakable spirit, stood ready to face whatever came next. The storm around her transforming from chaos into a testament to her resilience, her intelligence, and her unwavering commitment to reclaiming her life, her business, and her name. And as night fell over Atlanta, the city seemed to hold its breath, knowing that this was a story far from over, a saga of betrayal, power, and unyielding courage that had captured hearts, minds, and screens across the nation. While Rasheeda's quiet strength continued to define the narrative, proving that even in the face of profound deceit, the truth, strategy, and determination could prevail. As the dust begins to settle, and the echoes of betrayal, deception, and resilience reverberate through Atlanta, one thing is clear: Rasheeda has not only survived the storm but has emerged as a figure of unshakable strength, a woman whose courage, determination, and unwavering commitment to truth